It has been 2 months since the launch of Netflix's The Umbrella Academy, and I don't think it's too controversial a statement to say it's amongst the best the platform has to offer. Of course, some of the success can be easily attributed to the vibrant pop alt-rock soundtrack and stellar acting from the likes of Robert Sheehan and Aidan Gallagher. However, I believe there is a largely overlooked factor to their positive reception. In the age of the MCU, where the public's exposure to superheroes is at an all-time high, The Umbrella Academy manages to give an entirely new perspective. We've seen our heroes motivated by loss, honour, and guilt. But never before has so much focus been applied to loneliness as was in The Umbrella Academy. Let me be upfront, I'm not trying to reduce these wonderfully crafted multi-dimensional characters down to one trait. To do so would be an injustice to Jeremy Slater, Gerard Way, and Gabriel Barr. However, there's only so much that can be fit into a 10-minute video, so themes of loneliness, isolation, and a sprinkling of paternal abuse are what I'm going to focus on. With that being said, let's get into it. The present-day opening sequence does an incredible job of establishing each character as isolated in a way that is unique to their personality and experience. Vanya on a stage alone, illuminated by a blue spotlight, playing a mournful tune on the violin, shows both that her instrument is the only means through which she has identity, and how a feeling of sorrow is the result of a talent seeming insignificant in comparison to her siblings' powers. There is a clear parallel between Luther's personality and the moon which he is stationed on. The cold, unforgiving environment emulates Luther's inability to be emotionally vulnerable due to his feeling of abandonment after his siblings left home. Diego is first shown acting as a lone vigilante, a role appropriate for his defining traits of egotism, aggression, and inability to follow leadership, which spawned from jealousy of Luther's appointment as the family's number one. At face value, Allison may seem the exact opposite of isolated due to her celebrity status. However, her first appearance is presented in a way to immediately challenge this perspective. There is a physical barrier between her and the crowd of journalists, and the flashing of cameras is somewhat blinding, obscuring her view of the crowd. This is a remarkably impressive way of establishing Allison as a character who seems to be in an objectively good position, yet has limited experience in forming real relationships to get there, as she's exploited her ability her whole life. Klaus first being introduced as checking out from rehab demonstrates his dependency on drugs as an escape from reality. He opts to be numb to both the living and the dead as a means to avoid potential suffering akin to that he had as a child. With his drug consumption, however, comes a self-imposed loneliness. It's no coincidence that the first presentation of all these characters is of them being isolated, and even the first shots related to Five and Ben are of a lone painting and statue, respectively. Environmental determinism is the sociological theory that states a person's behaviour is derivative of their environment, that how they act is a result of their experiences in life. For our broken heroes of the Umbrella Academy, everyone's life is in decline, or at a push stagnant prior to their family's reconnection. Luther's 4-year stint on the moon has left him obsessed with his work.
Keep on being a loyal soldier after everything our father did to you.
Why, you mean save my life?
No, I mean turn you into a monster.
Klaus's mistreatment as a child has led him to drug addiction as a means of escaping his power.
Where has it gotten me? Nowhere. I can't talk to the person I love. People still don't take me seriously. I want to be numb again.
Diego embodies toxic masculinity as a result of his insecurity of inferiority.
Don't tell me everything is all right, because I saw you in there. You were crying like a baby.
Because I lost someone.
Vanya being told she isn't good enough to be part of the team makes her devoid of all self-esteem.
I don't know about that. My next student could probably lecture me on what I'm doing wrong.
Allison goes through a divorce and loses custody of her child as she has been abusing her power her entire life.
I heard a rumor you want to be my friend.
I heard a rumor that you like.
I heard a rumor you left me alone.
I heard a rumor that you stopped crying. I heard a rumor that I get it in one. I heard a rumor that you think I'm perfect for this. I heard a rumor that you love me.
Five is somewhat amoral due to his long-term isolation in the future.
We took out anyone who messed with the timeline.
What about innocent people?
It was the only way I could get back here.
But that's murder.
Jesus, Luther, grow up. We're not kids anymore. There's no such thing as good guys or bad guys. There's just people.
All of these character traits are undesirable and are the foundation for the flaws they have to overcome when the family reconnect.
How will the Umbrella Academy ever become an effective crime deterrent if we can't even leave the house on time for missions? Come along, children, come along!
Now we've established how each character is partially defined by their loneliness, let us explore how they managed to overcome it. Just as growing apart contributed to their personal downfalls, it's reconnection that allows them to recover. From the first episode, the group shows signs of cohesion.
Everyone get behind me! Yeah! Get behind us!
Just look at how they respond to a potential threat when Five first comes through the portal. See how Luther grabs Allison's hand, with him and Diego in front of the rest of them. However, moments like these are overshadowed by each sibling's shortcomings, such as the fight between Diego and Luther in the same location just moments after, resulting in the destruction of Ben's statue. Or when Allison says this to Vanya.
Of course.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
You know, if I wanted advice, Vanya, no offense, it wouldn't be from you.
The creative team behind the Umbrella Academy made an impressive decision with regards to the narrative in order to demonstrate the importance of connection. Episode 6, The Day That Wasn't, and Episode 7, The Day That Was, showed two alternate timelines wherein each family members bond, but in different pairings. In The Day That Wasn't, we see Luther and Allison rekindle their childhood romance after Luther finds out his time on the moon was futile. Diego and Klaus also strengthen their relationship by confiding in each other their shared sense of loss. In The Day That Was, however, Luther comes to terms with his father's betrayal, with the help of Klaus, not Allison. Diego, Allison and Five work together to investigate Leonard, and whilst at first they lack cohesion,
Settled.
You know, the door was unlocked.
Yeah, well, my way works just fine.
they pull together when it's discovered Five needs medical aid. The overall trend of the show is that of the family becoming closer, with one notable exception.
So of course you couldn't bother to include me.
There is still one more key element to be discussed regarding The Day That Wasn't and The Day That Was. Across both, Vanya is not included. This was, in my opinion, the crux of the show. The fact that in multiple timelines, Vanya is still neglected shows that she will always turn to Leonard, and subsequently set off down the path towards the apocalypse. The trend of excluding Vanya is established early in the show, when we see how blunt Reginald Hargreaves is when isolating her from her siblings.
Why can't I go play with the others?
We've been through this before, number 7. I'm afraid there's just nothing special about you.
Oh.
And time again, someone in the family will distance themselves from her, with the only occasional exception coming from Allison, as her being a mother gives a unique perspective on Vanya's mistreatment.
Vanya. Why didn't we include her? I mean, if anybody ever treated Claire like that, I can't even imagine.
It is ultimately this constant ousting that makes Vanya manipulatable, which Leonard exploits with acts of manufactured kindness. When Leonard finally gives Vanya the appreciation she's looked for her whole life, it's no wonder she trusts him entirely. The significance of finally being connected to someone is so great that it justifies her reaction to learning that she was being manipulated all along. After, she makes one final attempt to connect with her siblings, and Luther, in his boundless wisdom as the family's number one, does this. Finally, after Luther's come to terms with his own isolation with the support of his family, he denies Vanya the same support and locks her in a soundproof cell. The fact he perpetuates his father's abuse quite rightly makes him, and subsequently the rest of the family, the enemy in Vanya's eyes. Behind the charm of the show, through the music and through the colour, lies a cautionary tale. A tale of betrayal, abuse, and, of course, loneliness. Reginald Hargreaves' attempts to create a defence force for the world ended up being the very thing that caused the apocalypse itself, as his neglectful parenting snowballed into a very powerful, very hurt Vanya.